Hated Rivalry has been all over my YouTube feed these past few weeks. I don't really watch TV shows or movies, but a friend of mine recommended the show to me, so I did end up watching it. I finished the last episode a day ago at the time of writing. I've also watched a bunch of content like interviews, shorts, fan edits involving the lead actors. But the inspiration or the thing that kicked off this whole train of shower thoughts, which is what this is, was Nicole Raffi. She posted an extensive video about the show, its inception, the backgrounds of Hudson Williams and Connor Story, the two male lead actors. Part of her video went into detail about how the fandom that the show and the actors themselves have accumulated have, let's just say, in some ways gone too far in certain interactions, as fandoms are prone to do, unfortunately. For example, she mentioned fans were attacking Williams' alleged girlfriend online, speculating about Williams and Story's sexuality, speculating about potential relationship between Francois Arnault and Story, and then attacking Arnault for being too old for Story. And yeah, I don't know. Go watch the video. I did not know about all of this before watching the video. I don't really engage with fandom in general. But I can't say I'm surprised. I was in anime fandoms back in the 2010s, and yeah, some people were nice, but many were out of touch with reality, let's just say. But all of this got me thinking, is it possible to avoid creating this kind of parasocial relationship with fans? I was particularly intrigued by this case of Heated Rivalry, well, because I was watching it, and also because from what I could tell, Story and Williams are pretty private about their personal lives. Obviously, they talk at length about themselves as actors and their friendship in interviews and promotional material, but they're obviously completely disinterested in disclosing personal details like their sexuality and their romantic relationships to the public. I don't think I'm explaining my reasoning very well. Maybe I'll make a comparison to another parasocial, or this is extremely parasocial fandom, K-pop. My understanding of K-pop, at least, is the idols release lots of material that makes you feel like you actually or truly know the idol on a personal level, if that makes sense. There will be daily life vlogs, dorm or house tours, special episodes where the idols do something domestic, like cooking or baking, and all of these things kind of scream, look at me, this is what it would be like to date me. In contrast, from what I've seen, Story and Williams, they've only been in more formal or official kinds of content, like interviews, aside from and also their short films that they've posted online. But they've been mostly in interviews, magazine shoots, or TikToks filmed on set or at official events. So I guess I feel that Story and Williams have minimized the kind of fan service that's almost voyeuristic, that type of content that really makes fans sink into that parasocial fantasy. But still, they have their share of overly invasive fans. And maybe that's just unavoidable. If you gain a ton of fans, then you're bound to get ones who have very little discretion or boundaries. But my question is less, why do these fans exist? And more, is it possible for artists to avoid creating this type of relationship with fans in the first place? And I think my answer, for now at least, is no. Even if you go back further in time, these kinds of behaviors still appear. There was this thing that I recently learned about called listomania. So from the Wikipedia page, listomania was characterized by intense levels of hysteria demonstrated by fans, akin to the treatment of some celebrity musicians starting in the second half of the 20th century. So if you don't know who Liszt is, Franz Liszt was a virtuoso pianist and composer from the 19th century who stood at this inflection point, and he's also a pioneer, you could say, in the transition between the romantic to the post-romantic periods of music and musical aesthetics. So, okay, that was a tangent. My reasoning for why it's impossible to avoid creating parasocial relationships is that we understand art as a reflection of the artist. There are some assumptions going on here, and I won't do a full breakdown of aesthetic ideas, but I do want to point out that In the past, people didn't always think of art as having an expressive or an emotive function. For example, in the medieval or Renaissance periods, music's primary function was to serve as worship for church, clergy, that sort of thing. This also bled into the Baroque period, like box church chorales. At some points, or some people don't even consider music as an art. Again, I'm getting sidetracked. Let's stop talking about this now. I'm not familiar with acting, and I don't watch much visual media, as I mentioned earlier, but based on what I've heard in interviews, actors use their experiences and knowledge to interpret their script and to understand the character they play. So Williams mentioned that Shane is autistic, and he used his father to inform his portrayal of the character. And obviously Williams and Story also have more content outside of their acting roles, again, like their interviews and TikToks. Even if they don't reveal too much about their personal lives, they obviously answer and react to interview questions in different ways that characterize their personalities. So fans, for example, love mentioning how their personalities are the complete opposite of Shane and Ilya's personalities. I'll pull another example from music, because I'm way more familiar with it. Most of the time, musicians create music that they think sounds good. This sounds stupidly obvious, but bear with me. Their music is a manifestation of their taste. As a listener, you understand, like, oh, this is the type of music that this artist I'm listening to enjoys. And if you know that the artist writes their own music and lyrics, then as a listener, you also understand that this is kind of like an extension of the artist's mind, or their thoughts and feelings, and you feel that you understand the artist indirectly through their art. The other elephant in this big parasocial room is the element of physical attraction. Many actors and musicians must make their physical image available to the public. They can't, or at least it's very difficult to remain faceless when you have to perform, right? Either in front of a camera or on stage at a concert. And humans like looking at good-looking people. I'll be the first to admit that I do. And like, admittedly, Williams and Story are two very good-looking guys. So as the parasocial fan, you have good-looking guy about whom you're able to generate guesses or narratives regarding their personality and feelings. And then you end up feeling like you actually know this person on an intimate level. And this relationship between the artist and the fan goes two ways. I think what I've described above is kind of like the information that the artist broadcasts to their fans about themselves. But, and I think this is where a considerable chunk of the parasocializing comes from. We also have to consider how fans engage with and consume their artist's content on their end. So as much as a piece of art is a reflection of its artist, we as fans see ourselves in that art as well. We could simply think that like a piece of music sounds good. This sounds goodness is like a reflection of our own taste and cultural influences. But on like a deeper level, we connect with the art, like on an emotional level, right? Nicole Raffi mentioned seeing parts of herself in Shane and other parts of herself in Ilya. I would agree that the statement applies to myself as well. In music, we might see ourselves as the subject of a love song we're listening to, or we understand on some deeper nonverbal level the kind of angst or anger or dissatisfaction expressed by an electric guitar in a rock song. We see ourselves in our artist's art, and on some level, I think that we think that the artist understands us, that they've carved out a space just for us in their performance or in their music, and we feel possessive over that. I want to disclaim I'm not trying to make excuses for extreme fan behavior, invasive fan behavior in any way. I just want to say that this happens, or at least I think this happens. So then I started thinking about AI. Fuck, what am I doing? Okay, AI. I think most people are resistant to AI art. I'm going to use that as a statement or axiom. There is, yes, an ethical component to this. So, like, why are tech companies and AI art generators allowed to exploit the art of artists? Why are they allowed to exploit the resources of local communities like energy and water? But frankly speaking, I think that most people don't actually care about these ethical concerns unless they're directly affected by them. But many people still seem to have this instinctive resistance to a piece of media once they know it's AI generated, even if they're unaware of how AI works or how all the infrastructure around it exploits regular people. They might say, like, AI art is just bad, or it's not real art, even if they can't explain why, like, what counts as real art. Why is it bad? I've heard some arguments like, oh, it's not the end product that matters, but the effort that went into it, the years of like refining your skill and craft. But I think that's bullshit. We obviously appreciate and celebrate certain art over others. We appreciate and celebrate Hilary Hahn over the violinist sitting in the last row of the orchestra, even if they may have trained for the same amount of time. Someone might put their heart and soul into an acting performance and post it to YouTube, but if it's bad, then people will like fucking make fun of them, right? I I think, and this is like conclusion of my tangent, I think people are resistant to AI art because it's a kind of betrayal. You start enjoying a song, you find out it's AI, and you feel betrayed. Just from the stuff I mentioned earlier about how we interact with artist media. When we think that we made a connection to a space carved out for us, or we have some person who understands us, the artist, on like at least some level. But in reality, all we've done is fallen for the facsimile generated by an unfeeling machine. That's betrayal. So the thesis to this long-winded rant, I guess, is that we don't like AI art because any kind of connection we can make to it is disingenuous, a deception, or a betrayal. Maybe this has been said before and I'm not bringing anything new to the table. I don't know, maybe I just sound as crazy as Plato ranting about the moral degeneration of certain musical modes, but you tell me.